There's nothing worse than buyer's remorse. No, scrap that, there is. There's buyer's remorse when you've bought the wrong Mac. Today, I'm going to help you avoid that. Hello and welcome back to Ellis Reviews, and thank you for subscribing if you have, and if you haven't subscribed, you know where the button is. We've all experienced buyer's remorse in our lives. It's horrible when you've spent loads of money on something and you get it and you think, I shouldn't have bought this. Sometimes you can send it back, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can send it back, but it costs you. It's just a horrible thing to get into. And it's really easy to do, particularly with Apple stuff. I've experienced it with iPhones, iPads, Macs, Apple Watches. I also see, unfortunately, quite a few people in my comments saying, I bought this and I've realized now that I shouldn't have bought it. It bothers me because it's a lot of money that you can spend on Apple stuff. And if you don't enjoy it, or if you realize you've made a mistake, that's terrible. It's not your fault at all. It's either down to poor marketing on Apple's part, poor advice given by people on the internet, hopefully not me. And sometimes, yeah, you listen to your heart more than you do your head when you buy something. We've all done it. However, I have learnt my lesson, I think, and I've come up with 4 tips for avoiding buyer's remorse, specifically for Apple, but you can apply this to a lot of things in life, I think. So if you're about to buy a new Mac or Apple anything, watch this first. My first tip is, if you're worried about it, buy it. Now that might sound a bit odd on face value, so let me just quickly explain. So one of the most successful pieces of content I've ever made is my advice about choosing between the 8GB or 16GB M1 Macs. It's a topic which really understandably confuses people because it's a completely different world. 8GB in the M1 land is very different to 8GB of RAM in the Intel universe. But I have seen some people who have bought the 8GB version and realised they should have bought the 16GB version and vice versa. Several months ago, my advice used to be, just get the 8GB version. Don't worry too much about the 16GB unless you're a creator, unless it's your business and you absolutely rely on this machine to get lots of fairly intensive stuff done. Now, I've changed my advice on this slightly, and the only reason for that really is I found myself increasingly saying to people, look, if you're asking this question about whether or not you should go for the 16GB version, and if you can afford it, if it's not too much of a stretch, you don't have to borrow money and get yourself into debt over it, then just get it. Because there's a reason you're asking that question. There's a reason you're sitting there thinking, do I need the 16GB? And if you can just push that budget to that version of whatever it is that you're asking yourself about, and you're worried about the feeling you might have if you don't get that version, you get the lower end version, just get it. Of course, like I said, there's no need to put yourself in debt over this at all, but if you can work the numbers, if the numbers make sense to you, whether it be a personal purchase or a business investment, and you keep asking yourself about that upgrade, it's the simplest way to avoid any form of buyer's remorse. Tip 2 is to watch and listen to people like yourself. Now, you might be watching me because you can see yourself in me in a weird way. You know, I might be a similar kind of person to you. That's kind of why I make this channel. It's why most YouTubers and bloggers create their content. They want to find an audience which is pretty much a mirror image of themselves because it's the best way to offer advice. And this never used to happen. You know, before the world of YouTube and influencers and all this sort of stuff, we had to rely on fairly broad reviews, whether they be in magazines or newspapers. And the people writing those reviews had quite a tough job because they had to review a piece of technology for the masses. And that's very hard to do because the masses are split up into lots of different segments of different types of user. So one of the best things you can do to avoid buyer's remorse with Apple stuff is to just go on YouTube, search for as many reviews as you can on the product that you're looking at and watch them. And then quite quickly you'll find 2 or 3 people who you look at and you think, yeah, you're thinking about this in the same way as me. The other benefit of doing this is that the people that you find might mention stuff that you weren't aware of. For instance, have you thought about VPNs? Do you need a VPN? What is a VPN? Well, this video is very kindly sponsored by the guys at Private Internet Access. And they have some VPN software that has been downloaded, I think, over 30 million times. They've got 10+ years of VPN experience. The VPN software itself, which basically you install on any device. It works on Macs, Windows, tablets, phones, the whole gamut. You install their software and it enables you to access content worldwide, but it also encrypts your data. So all the data that is going backwards and forwards between your machine and the internet is completely encrypted. No one can get into it, including Private Internet Access themselves. The guys behind this have no interest in collecting your data. They're just providing the service to mask it and encrypt it and keep it away from prying eyes. But their software does mean that your IP address will be completely changed, and then all of your internet traffic is routed through an encrypted tunnel. But it also blocks ads, trackers, and malicious websites. It's massively customizable too. I've not really gone into the customization section of it yet because I'm not that type of user, but if you're the sort of person who really wants to get in and tweak the VPN and make it your own, then private internet access give you all the tools to do that. Even better news, if you want to check out what this is all about and see if it works for your new Mac or your Windows machine or your iPhone, etc., if you click the link in my description, you'll get a massive 83% saving on the regular price. There's also a completely risk-free 30-day trial, so there's no reason not to give it a go, really. Go and check out the link in my description, and thank you again to Private Internet Access for supporting this video. Tip 3 for avoiding buyer's remorse is quite a simple one, really, and that is to try it if you can. Because there's nothing quite like getting a device, for example, the iPhone, and turning it around in your hands and feeling it and looking at it and working out how it feels to use. Now, there's one caveat with this when it comes to Apple, which is that I wouldn't buy to return. Now, Apple has a wonderful return policy. I think it differs in certain countries, but generally speaking, you can keep the device for a little while, and if you're not happy with it, just send it back. No questions asked, they'll refund you, job done. All the review units, for example, in this studio, I buy. I don't buy them with a view to return them. And the reason I'd say the same from a consumer's point of view or a business's point of view is that the problem with Apple gear is that when you get it, because it's so nice, because they package it so nicely, and the whole thing's a bit of an event in terms of when you open it and turn it on, and there's very few Apple products that aren't designed in a beautiful way either. So as soon as you get it in your hand, immediately your brain and your heart starts fluttering and you think, I'm just going to keep this. And then lo and behold, a month later, the buyer's remorse starts to build. So if you can, head to your local Apple store, if you've got a approved retailer or some other form of big name retailer that sells Apple stuff, and just get one of those things in your hand. Or if you've got a mate or a colleague or someone who has got that thing, go and have a play with it. I've been amazed by how many times I've done that, and I've realized that the one that I've been hankering after, that the version of the iPhone or the iPad or whatever, isn't the right one. Or equally, I've walked into an Apple store and found a different version that is perhaps cheaper and thought, hang on a minute, this is it, this is what I need. So obviously what you do with your purchasing and buying decisions is entirely up to you. But my advice really is just don't buy to return, because I think you'll probably end up keeping it. My last tip is, again, pretty simple and something which I think some people, myself included, find quite difficult, which is don't wait. I've been guilty of putting off Apple purchases for way, way too long because I'm waiting for that next big thing to arrive. The next big thing will always arrive, or should always arrive at some stage, but we never know when that's going to be. Apple are incredibly secretive, and as we've realised and spotted over the last few weeks and few months actually this year, leakers and the kind of whole rumour mill thing is in a complete disarray. So whatever Apple is doing behind the scenes to tighten up supply chain leaks and things getting out of their hands and control and into the wide world before it's released, it seems to be working. But the downside of that from a consumer's point of view is that we just don't know what they're going to do next or when they're going to do it. And the only other time you might want to wait is if you're an early adopter. So if you like to get the next big thing, the next new thing, and you're not too worried about any failings it might have being a first generation product, then it can make sense to wait. But if you need or just want that thing now, today, and you can afford it, just buy it. Because even if the replacement arrives a week later, 1, it might be too expensive. 2, it might have issues which the one that you've bought hasn't got. And 3, I can guarantee, regardless of that, you'll still love that thing that you bought. It is important to play it safe with release cycles. So at the moment, at the time of recording, the iPhone 13 has just been announced and it's coming next week. So it would be a bit daft to buy an iPhone 12 now. But the iPhone is a bit of an anomaly, really. It's the only Apple release cycle that is fairly predictable. Everything else, anything can happen. The Macs can get launched at any time. iPads can get launched at any time. So if you've done your research, you've tried it, you've seen it in the flesh, you've listened to people that seem to be similar to you in terms of reviews, just go and buy it. Don't wait for the next big thing because it may never arrive. I really hope that helps you during your buying process for Apple stuff, and like I say, anything else which is going to cost you a lot of money in the future. But I'm interested, what Apple products have you bought in the past that you've regretted? I know it's not a nice topic, but it's quite interesting. Let me know in the comments. If you've still got a bit of time, keep watching for a link at the end of this video to my recent 3-month review of the 24-inch M1 iMac. But until next time, thank you as always for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.